Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky. And we are back for another episode of Joe on Joe Illustrated. Now, last few weeks, we've been getting heavy into Snake Eyes. First, we had a fun Snake Eyes Dead Game episode. I hope you guys all enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed putting that together. And then last week, we had our big Snake Eyes review episode with our crossover with Movies in the Meal podcast, our wonderful sponsors. Now, we have been doing some Snake Eyes giveaways. Prizes have been fulfilled. Listeners have been made happy. You got to listen to win. Thank you for all our listeners. It's a lot of fun. We had some exclusive Snake Eyes posters that I had picked up at the premiere. Those got mailed out as of this writing. Those got mailed out yesterday. I still have a prize left to send to our friend in Argentina. If you're listening, that's going to be coming your way soon. We gave away a video game. We gave away a book, a soundtrack, some fun stuff. And when I get my hands on more cool Snake Eyes swag, if I do, or G.I. Joe swag, I'm always thinking of you guys. So I appreciate sharing all this, absolutely sharing all this, just to say, I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you guys telling people about the show when you're talking G.I. Joe, saying, hey, did you hear the latest episode of Joe on Joe? Joe was giving away a bunch of good Joe stuff. Just use the word Joe a lot. That's also self-promoting. Anytime you say the word name Joe, I get a dime. I think that's how it works. Super, super huge props and thanks to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/JoeOnJoePod. You guys help keep the show running, and all you listeners are great. And a lot of, it's funny. I was waiting to be, I'll be brutally, absolutely honest. I was expecting the last few weeks to be very G.I. Joe controversially centric. And I've seen a little bit, but I haven't seen a ton. The reviews I think are just lackluster. And so people are kind of starting to move on. I've seen more vitriol coming from the He-Man and the Master of the Universe community over the last few weeks, which a lot of it has been very disappointing to see. But talking G.I. Joe wise, it seems to me the general reaction is one of it just wasn't a great experience. Not a lot of people up in arms about various aspects of it, but it was just a target sitting there to be hit. And once again, G.I. Joe misses the mark, which is disappointing, and it bums me out, and it makes me sad. I actually haven't checked the box office. I don't really check it that much. I don't care to check it, but I know it finished second the first week at like 13 million, and so that's not good for the long-term legs. So I really just hope that Hasbro / Paramount / whoever actually cares about the Joe brand and not just wants to make a movie, I hope they have enough faith in it to really keep it alive and really do something else. Now I know we got the new cartoon coming. That's exciting. That's happening. So that will help grow the base from the ground up. Kind of makes you think like maybe that should have happened first. Get the young people stirred up. I heard that was a thing. There were a lot of young people that weren't really into it, just because they. It's just not on their radar to be excited about. Not that they didn't enjoy it, but it just wasn't on their radar to be excited about. So, whatever. That's for other people to figure out. I'll be supporting it when it comes out on Blu-ray, DVD, 4K, whatever, digital, whatever platform. I will be supporting it there. I hope you guys do too, just to support the brand. We've certainly we've come a long way. There is a Snake Eyes movie in the theaters, that's still to this day, as jaded as we all are, that's still pretty impressive, I think. And as far as coming a long way, the Movies in a Meal podcast has certainly come a long way. So let's hear from them.
Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie, it's about not two movies, it's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out one episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show.
It's true. You guys got to give them a listen. I hope you heard our crossover episode. I hope you actually listened via their pod, because there was more to it. They had other interviews and stuff online. We just snipped out the conversational part of it and used it on last week's episode. So I hope that sent you guys over to Movies and a Meal. And I hope you said, hey, from Joe on Joe. Ben Pensarga is really awesome. And while you're saying, hey, from G.I. Joe, Joe on Joe, while you're saying that, I want you to follow me on social, Joe on Joe Pod, on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram. Send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. And, say hi on Facebook and what have you and whatnot. I always love talking to listeners and striking up good G.I. Joe conversations and stuff. So I'm here for you. You're here for me. It's a mutual conversation. And that is what G.I. Joe number 90 is all about. G.I. Joe number 90, by the way, Real American Hero we're talking, is very much an A to B issue. It's a transitional issue that just kind of carries on some plot points. Nothing huge happens. It's very well done. I like it a lot. It's got that great Mark Bright artwork, which I'm on record as being a fan of. It's got Road Pig, which is awesome. I'm happy to announce I finally got a Road Pig action figure. He was one of the knocks who's always been a favorite of mine, but he came out after I'd stopped collecting, so I never went back and got him. And I picked myself up a complete Road Pig at the Torpedo Comic Show recently. There was one vendor there who had action figure stuff, and he had a few bins of complete Joe figures. So I guess I don't have the file card, but his figure's complete, and he's pretty great. Road Pig's absolutely a real time, I guess a current favorite of mine. I can't say he was a favorite back in the day. It's not a nostalgia favorite. It's a current one, saying that's a great figure. And so Road Pig takes some of the spotlight in this issue. That's a lot of fun. And before we get started, we're going to get into the segment we love to call
You Were Saying,
where we look at the Marvel comics and DC comics and movies that were in the theaters and on the stands the same time this book was out. This book is cover dated September 1989. So we're going to start over at Marvel Comics and see what other comic books were on the rack during that same time. And we see Captain America, the Bloodstone, the Bloodstone Hunt. This 6 issues was one of my earliest introductions to Cap, at least in this era. I was very well aware of Captain America as a character. Certainly had seen him, I watched his TV stuff when it was on and cartoons and all that stuff. And I had like one older issue, I think around like 270 something. It was an older issue where Red Skull took over the Shield helicarrier and fought. I could figure out the number, but I know the issue by look. And he took over. He gassed everybody, and everyone became Red Skulls, and Cap was depowered. And I had that issue, and I had read that issue cover to cover 100 times. So beat up. I still have the beat up copy of it, and then I went out and got a decent one. But the Bloodstone Hunt When this came out, I wasn't reading Cap, and my buddy Irish, Pat Finnegan, Pat, if you're listening, what's up? Irish was, and Irish had these, or at least he picked these issues up from like 7-Eleven. And we fell in love with the Bloodstone Hunt. This story is great. It's Baron Zemo, and then the whole that crew of I think they had a nickname for themselves, but it was like Batroc and Machete. Batroc's Brigade. That's it. It's right there on the cover. And the guy's, it's not Zartan, obviously, but the other dude's name is like Xandars, or not Xandars, something. I think the other dude is actually, I think in the one whose name I can't remember. I think he's in the upcoming Shang-Chi movie. This 6 issues is great. Now this book went bi-weekly for this summer. You know, this is May of 1989. So it's cover dated September, but these books were released in May of 89. And Cap was running bi-weekly at the time, and it was awesome. Diamondback is a big part of it, and Cap goes on this chase around the world to get all the pieces of the Bloodstone that Ulysses Bloodstone formerly had like impregnated in him. You know, like it was embedded in his body. And Ulysses Bloodstone was an old school Marvel monster hunter, and so like they find the bones of Bloodstone scattered all over the world, and those have the Bloodstone fragments, and then Zemo's going to use them to get power. Beyond that, the details are a little fuzzy, but as a story, it's awesome. It's really, really good. The artwork, I think, is Kieran Dwyer, and I believe it's some of his earliest stuff. Let me just verify that as we're chatting. Yeah, Kieran Dwyer. Mark Grunwald was writing Cap at that point. You know, he'd write Cap for like the next 10 years, all the way up till Mark Waid took over in the early 90s. Or I guess 10 years, Jesus. We're in 89 now. So when did Mark Waid take over? Mid-90s. So yeah, Grunwald is in the middle of his really, really massive Captain America run, which of course they are just using, you know, all over the MCU stuff. I wouldn't be surprised, because they eventually, with Bloodstone, they made Elsa Bloodstone, his daughter, and they gave her. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do it like if they bring Elsa Bloodstone into the actual MCU at some point, because she's like part of Next Wave, and she's just like one of those offshoot B peculiar characters that you know, that Marvel likes to prop up and use. So Bloodstone's on the radar in that regard. I wouldn't be surprised if she pops up somewhere like a Blade movie or something. But yeah. And that was the other thing too. There were Scourge stories in there, also penciled by Mark Bright. There were Scourge stories in the back of these Bloodstone issues, and Scourge was the villain who, at this point, had been killed, but was going around killing B-level supervillains about 20 issues earlier. So this is they're bringing back Scourge at the same time. This era of Cap is a lot of fun. So if you ever get your hands on like the Bloodstone Hunt trade, you should really check that out. It's really, really great. It's a really fun story to read. Speaking of, so Kieran Dwyer is John Byrne's son-in-law, I think, or stepson, something along those lines. I think stepson, like by marriage, I believe. And speaking of that, he did the cover to Amazing Spider-Man Annual 23, which I've always thought was a nice cover with She-Hulk and Spider-Man, and they're fighting the Abomination. I always enjoyed Byrne's takes on Hulk figures, because he draws a really well overly muscled big guy, you know. So he's got his Abomination, I think, looks good. It doesn't look super horrific, so I wouldn't put it in that category. But he always gives a lot of good weight and depth to his characters. So that's Spider-Man Annual number 23. That's on the shelf at the same time. Atlantis Attacks is happening over in Daredevil. In Spider-Man, Mcfarlane is they're doing the assassination plot. If memory serves, Mcfarlane did most of the pencils on this series. I think maybe the last issue or so he actually didn't do the interiors, but we'll see. We'll get to that. But that assassination plot, that had dealt with like a lot of international intrigue with Silver Sable and Paladin, things like that. That's also running bi-weekly. What do we got here? G.I. Joe Special Missions number 25. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I love Indiana Jones. I spoiled both Temple of Doom and Last Crusade via comic book when I was a child. I regret nothing. Actually, I regret both of those things. But I absolutely knew the full story when I went into both those movies. But that's how you learn the life lessons. Those are my first experience. It really was my first experience with the concept of spoilers. And maybe it's not the best idea to completely know the story that you're going in to read, or going in to watch the movie of. Maybe. Uncanny X-Men 248. This is an important issue because this is Jim Lee's first issue as penciler on the X-Men. Talk about like an unheralded entrance of one of the biggest names in comics over the last however many years, 30 years. Jim Lee's stuff still very much, he's got Dan Green inking him. So Dan Green brings that transition from Mark Silvestri, the look. And, obviously they're both image, so they both kind of have that hyper image style, but they are very different pencilers. But Dan Green makes that bridge. So the book doesn't look, the cover doesn't look jarringly different from a Silvestri cover. But this is a first Jim Lee. So this is a fun book to get and hold in your collection. It goes up a little bit. It's not a key issue by any stretch as far as what happens in it, but having the first Jim Lee X-Men is always it's always a nice little corner of your comic collection. Like, oh yeah, I got that one. The Wolverine Saga, #1. Wolverine at that point had such a still mysterious, they hadn't done origin Wolverine, they hadn't done his origin yet, but he was so mysterious. They put out this 4-issue Wolverine Saga, which collected, very much like Marvel Age. It collected snippets and panels from all the issues of comics that he had been in up to that point, which was a lot of X-Men, and his own series had been going for a little bit. And they kind of made an effort to tell what his life story was. I always enjoyed it quite a bit. There's zero value of this book on the aftermarket, and zero value in reprints on it because it's just reprinting old panels with some, text explainers to tell his story. But if you're ever looking for a fun Wolverine primer, at least up to that point, and the Wolverine Saga is you could do a lot worse than that. It's 4 issues. It's got some fun covers. This one's got a Liefeld cover. Yeah, check it out. You can find them in most back issue bins for pretty cheap, $4 or $5 at the most. Speaking of Captain America, What If Volume 2, number 3, and this one is what if Steve Rogers had refused to give up being Captain America? So this is instead of letting the U.S. agent, John Walker, become Cap. What if Steve had said, no, I'm going to stay Captain America, and the Freedom Force gets involved, and it's a whole mishigash. So that's a whole lot of fun. So now we're going to see what's over at DC Comics.
You were saying?
And DC Comics, let's see. Some detailed George Perez work on Action 645. That's the introduction of Maxima, which is the space alien, the attractive redhead space alien who comes to Earth to mate with Superman. And, he's not having it. She's popped up in multiple. It's funny for a kind of I remember reading this back in the day and being like, oh, okay, that's fun. But they've actually used her in a fair amount of places. And I think the appeal is you get a leggy, tall, leggy redhead character to show up, and someone who wants to date your lead. I think that's a fun character to throw into a mix, and so she's been on the animated series, and she's shown up and keeps recurring in the comics every once in a while. So Maxima's had a little life to her, which is which I would not have guessed 20 some whatever years ago. Fun cover on Captain Atom number 33, recreating a classic Batman and Robin cover. It's Captain Atom in the role of Robin on a rooftop with Batman looming overhead. That's a lot of fun. What else do we got here? El Diablo number 2. Oh man, Hawkworld number 2. We talked at length about Hawkworld last time. I love that. Justice League Europe number 6 is a lot of fun. The League They're based in Paris, and none of them speak French. So they have to go to a night school to learn French, and it happens to be the same night school that the Injustice gang is at, with people like Major Disaster, Big Sur, Clock King, but everyone's there in their civilian guise. So no one knows that the Flash is sitting next to, Major Disaster, for example. It's a funny farcical issue, which makes sense. You're setting it in Paris. They love that Jerry Lewis kind of farce comedy. So this if you were ever wondering like what's a good way to kind of define the Justice League Europe era, this Paris embassy era, what would be a good way to like capture that? This issue is it. They wouldn't be in Paris for much longer. I think maybe another 6 issues or so. They eventually moved to London, but this issue is a whole lot of fun. So you all should have picked up that Justice League Omnibus. I've talked about it a few times. It's so great. So here's a good one. The question number 30. Now this issue, I'm not sure exactly what's cracking in it. I haven't read it. Can't tell you what it is. But Denny O'Neil, Dennis Cohen question is dynamite. And the reason this got me excited is I saw yesterday that later this year or early next year, DC is finally putting out a question omnibus that's going to collect all these issues. Oof. Do yourself a favor, sign up for it now. Send a clear signal to the people over at DC that you're interested in this book. Don't let it get canceled. A lot of times they'll put up stuff like this, to see, and if there's enough pre-orders, or if there isn't enough pre-orders, they may pull it out of production. That's happened a lot actually with Legion books over the last few years. Don't let that happen with the question. Even if you have it, like, it's a good book to have on your shelf, because it shows any other comic fan that sees it that, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, or this gal knows what he's talking about. Because the question series is just so damn good. Vic Sage, and I'm excited. I'm excited that they're doing an omnibus for it. So put that on your wish list, everybody. I'm actually not sure the release date. They also mentioned the second volume of Legion 5 years, and I think the release date on it was like May of next year. So I was disappointed by that. I was hoping that one would be up by Christmas. So I'm not exactly sure when this question is, but get on it. Don't wait. Get on the stick with question. Suicide Squad 33. I'm going to see Suicide Squad tonight as we record this. No other reason I wanted to talk about that other than to say I'm excited to see that movie. Cannot wait. I hear it's great. It looks great. I'm excited to do it. And that
You were saying
is what we were saying. So now, 1989. May 1989. What do we got here? We've got, let's see, May 5th. 2 movies I've never heard of. Signs of Life and Listen to Me. I have no idea what those 2 movies are. May 12th, though, Earth Girls Are Easy. This is a whole lot of fun. Gina Davis, Jim Carrey, Damon Wayans, Jeff Goldblum, Julie Brown, the alien girls. The aliens come to Earth and they, have romantic hijinks with the guy. It's a fun movie. Have not seen it forever, so I don't know if it holds up, but I remember it being wacky and kooky, a little over my head when I was a little kid, but with all those people in it. Michael McKean, Charlie Rocket's in it, Rick Overton. That's a lot of talent. I think I need to revisit Earth Girls Are Easy as an adult to appreciate it a little more. See No Evil, Hear No Evil with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. It's got to be one of their... Kevin Spacey's in this? It's got to be one of their final collaborations. I don't think they work together very much more after this. On May 19th, Fright Night Part 2 with Roddy McDowell. Let's see who's in here. William Ragsdale. Brian Thompson shows up in it. I love the original Fright Night. Very high on my list of fabulous 80s films. I've absolutely seen part 2, but I don't remember the last time I've seen it. But Fright Night Part 1 makes me want to watch Fright Night Part 2 again now. And then I know they did a new Fright Night Part 2 to match that other Fright Night with Colin Farrell, which was okay. It wasn't the worst remake I've ever seen, but it was okay. And I've not seen that Fright Night Part 2 either. So maybe I need to do a Fright Night Part... Just watch Part 2s of Fright Nights. Maybe that's what I need to do. May 19th, throat ripping fun in Roadhouse. Patrick Swayze, Ben Gazzara, Kelly Lynch, Sam Elliott. You guys know Roadhouse. Come on. Roadhouse is a legend. But that all just clears the way. And on May 24th, there's only one movie. There's only one movie to care about until the next month. But Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Stop yourself. This movie, we could talk forever about this movie too. We talked about Batman 89 and how much I love that, and that defined the summer, and it did. But man, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that movie was like, that was, it was I absolutely remember seeing it in the theater with my mother. We went to Orland Mall. I remember going in and coming, like, it was one of those moments of like, man, I'm old enough. So what would I be, 14? I'm old enough to like make my choices about, I want to see this movie. And also this is a guy I grew up with, you know, like with Batman, there was an excitement about a new thing because it was all brand new, right? It was certainly a new Batman, and as a character, you knew who he was. But for me, Last Crusade was this specific iteration of this character I had now grown up with over, you know, for what, 9 years? Raiders was 80? Yeah. Raiders was 80. Empire was 81, or Empire was 80. Raiders was 81. Raiders was 81, I think. And so, you know, 8 years of my life. So since I was 6, I had Indiana Jones in my life. I had puzzles of the Temple of Doom. Used to put puzzles together. I had the VHS, or not VHS, the video store stand-up displays of Indiana Jones in my house from the cassette, you know, like the cassette releases. My buddy's dad owned a videotape rental place, and so I had like, you know, like promotional stuff for Indiana Jones in my house. I was in Indiana Jones for Halloween one year. Like, Indiana Jones was a real grow up with me kind of guy. So to be of that age and to have an awareness of this third movie coming out and to be excited and to, you know, make a choice, we're going to see this, you know, like opening weekend. That was huge. And man, did I love that movie. I still do. You know, it's funny, over the years you hear it's like an ebb and flow of people saying it's great, and then people say it's cheesy, and then people say it's meh, and then, you know, and the same thing with Temple of Doom, where people are like, no, it's the worst, it's not very good. Man, I'll fight anybody. All three of those movies are great, and The Last Crusade is just absolutely note perfect for what it needs to be. You cast James Bond as his dad. The banter between those two is legendary. There's just so many great moments in it. Alison Doody is awesome. They had 2 PC games that came out with it, and I got both of those. I played the hell out of them. I mean, and this was before like the adventure game version of it, before, you know, internet hints and stuff. Man, I spent days at my computer, just collectively days, trying to figure out how to beat that game. So happy when I did. Yeah, Indiana Jones is fabulous. So Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that's the only mail. That's how we got to end this segment.
You were saying?
And now we're going to get into G.I. Joe number 90.
Now, mass is ready.
That's right, Destro. And this cover is ready too. This cover has got Road Pig with Clutch and Rock and Roll on it. Underneath, well, Rock and Roll under it, crooked in his right arm like in a headlock, and Clutch clutched in his left hand, dragging them down the hallway of a prison towards a Brainwave Scanner chamber. And this cover's by Mark Bright and Bob McLeod. I like this cover. I like that we have background on it that sets it in it gives more, it sets it in a place. It sets it in prison. You don't necessarily know that they're Joes. but they weren't necessarily dressed as Joes when they were captured. So in keeping with the story, you got to keep them in their civilians, so their civilian togs. I get that. It's funny. As much as I love covers to represent not exactly, but kind of show what's going on. I would have actually made the argument to put them in their G.I. Joe outfits on this cover, so that you show an obvious bad dude, even if you don't know who Road Pig is, an obvious, malcontent, dragging two members of the team that look like the guy in the upper left corner, which, is Grunt in that stock Grunt photo. Two members of the Joe team, even though, their outfits are the old school drab green, dragging them down the hallway. That is, I think, would make a more powerful statement on this cover. Having said that, he drew what they were wearing when they got arrested. We're talking about 2 issues back? Or is it just last issue? When was that? Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was just last issue. For me, it was 3 weeks. That's why I'm like, wait a minute, it feels like forever. So they drew what's in the comic, so I got 100% honor that, 100% respect that. I would have actually made the note to put them in their Joe uniforms just for the cover, to make it pop a little more on the stand, because that tells you a better story. And I like because you can tell it's in prison, and I like the tease of the Brainwave Scanner chamber, because even if you don't know what the Brainwave Scanner is, what else do you need to know? It's called the Brainwave Scanner. It can't be good.
Yo, Joe!
Now, before we start with recurring themes, written Larry Hama script, MD Bright pencils, Randy Umberlin inks, Rick Parker letters, Bob Sharon color, Bobby Chase editor, Tom DeFalco editor in chief. Before we start, I just want to make sure that you can double zap your zits with new Clearasil double clear pads. Double zap your zits with new double clear pads from Clearasil. They say that 1, 2, 3. So they say double zap 3 times, and they use the word double 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times. It's a great ad. I'm saying it's a great ad. I don't care about the ad, but it's a great example of driving home their main point of double. Like you're getting twice as much. This is a good lesson for any of you young marketers out there. They're really driving home their point of double. They use double so much in this copy. Check that out. It's really kind of funny. So recurring things. We're on the steps of the former lodge hall, think like an Elks Lodge in Broca Beach. And there's a phalanx, a little platoon of Iron Grenadiers blocking the way of the Dreadnoks who are trying to get into this hall. And Zartan is kind of leading the charge of get out of our way, guys. One note as we go through this, there's multiple instances, and I actually appreciate this, because we in previous issues I was talking about how Mark Bright draws Zartan kind of homely. We'll just use that, he doesn't gloss her up, and they make a point of pointing that out in this, which I think is dynamite, because I think that brings character to it, of saying, yes, she's not necessarily a stunner, and dressing like a post-apocalyptic terrorist doesn't help either, but she gets by because she's so ballsy, and she doesn't really care. And they make a point multiple times in this story of pointing out that Zartan is not very attractive, or at least in everyone's eyes she's not. But all the Dreadnoks are there.
Yo, Joe!
Except for Zanzibar, as we'll revisit later. And this Iron Grenadier puts a boot in her face. That is crazy. Eats shoe leather, biker trash, and he knocks her down the steps of what we will see in this final panel on this page of the Cryptic Order of Benevolent Reptilian Apostates. So obviously that's an acronym for Cobra, and that's what they're, that's like the acronym for, instead of an Elks Club, it's like the Cobra Club. Cobra, just no one can ever get along. No one can ever just, hey, we got something good going here, let's just all be chill. But no, these guys were told that there's a meeting going on outside, don't let anyone in, the Dreadnoks are getting in, and we're going to get into a fight outside. Road Pig, of course, who loves Zarana, at least half of him does. You know, he's not hearing any of it.
Yo, Joe!
Really good blocking and tackling, by the way, on both these pages. You get a lot of nice, like, long / medium shots to establish where they're at. On the previous page, for I think for good reason, but for no real reason, the camera goes way up high to show us where in town they are, and it's the middle panel. Sorry to jump back a page, but it's the middle panel where you see the boardwalk, which we had previously talked about in the previous issue, with the hidden vehicles on the carnival rides. So you actually see that in this shot. So if you remember that from the previous issue, but you see the ocean and the beach, and that's really the important part of this pullback. And a couple streets over, you see where they're at. So this one little panel does a whole lot of lifting to place us into this story. It could, without this panel, this could have been, you know, Springfield. Well, it could have been Springfield, because we're not at Springfield anymore. You know, we're at Broca Beach. You know, and Springfield was what? Springfield was always like middle America, middle of nowhere, blah, blah, blah. This is reminding us we're at beachfront. It's, you know, we know it's the Jersey Shore beachfront, but like it's a really, really, really smart way to just ground us even more into the story. And Mark Bright, back to the page that we're on, does he does great work with backgrounds and stuff. He's not an artist who ignores backgrounds. Dead game. Anyway, so that really helps put you into the story, and that helps you follow the story. What's happening on this page is Darklon pops his head out, and he tranquilizes Road Pig with, 1, 2, 3, 7, 10 shots of horse tranquilizer, knocking him out because he just wants everyone to chill out. And again, I go back to, man, that Darklon mask is struggling. That is a rough mask. That is no fault on any artist. That is a difficult mask to comprehend / portray interestingly. I don't know what's happening with Darklon. That is such a look. I don't hate it, but that is such a look, man. That is such a unique look for a character. I don't know what's going on. And there's a couple places here where they do kind of make fun of him. Anyway, so yeah. So he Road Pig's knocked out.
Yo, Joe!
Now, speaking of masks, so we're on this page. We're inside the Benevolent Order Lodge. Cobra's redecked it with Cobra flags. And it's Destro holding court with the upper management, and you've got your usual suspects. Mindbender, Baroness, Fred Mander. Zarana's made her way inside now. Who else is there? Well, Darkline. The Zoltar. Zoltar? Yeah, Voltar, sorry. Voltar's there. And Destro's pointing out, ever since the Civil War, Cobra's in shambles. No one's really leading Cobra. Profits are down, and it's not being. So in order to stem this tide, I'm taking over. So when I say, speaking of masks, the Destro on these next 2 pages, to me, I feel like these 2 pages might have been a redraw. They don't feel very Mark Brighty, and I don't know why that is. And then later on, just kind of flipping through my comic book a little bit. When I get to page 22, if you guys have the book with you and jump ahead to 22, you see that's a Mark Bright Destro right in the middle of page 22. That Destro does not look like the Destro that I'm seeing on this page and the following story page, at least facially. I'm curious. I'm wondering if anyone else sees that, and maybe that was like an artistic redraw. I don't know why, how, or whatever. Maybe he drew old Destro. That might be the case, or maybe, maybe he did. Maybe that was it. I don't know, but it's something popped out. That's all. I'm not saying it's bad or anything. It just doesn't. It looks different. It looks smallish. it doesn't look like the Mark Bright kind of head that I would be expecting there. Anyway, so he's addressing the crew.
Yo, Joe!
And here comes Voltar with this chart. And Destro is, and this is, for our edification as much as anything, Destro's laying out, this is how Cobra's going to run from here on out. So, Commander and Voltar, all of a sudden Voltar is one of the heads of Cobra. Cobra Commander and Voltar are going to run operations and manufacturing from Cobra Island. How did Voltar get elevated to leadership? That is shocking. And they're going to use it as a giant showroom and luxury resort for high roller buyers. So basically, Destro has taken over Cobra operations, and he's going to use it to enrich his pocket, using Cobra resources to make Mars Industry a whole ton of money. Baroness and Zartan, they're going to head up the funding, covert operations and intelligence from Broca Beach. And Destro himself, with Darkline, but Darkline's his cousin, right? They're going to head up sales and marketing, which, hey, said on the show before many times, Cobra branding, the best branding in the business. So Destro's doing something right. This, of course, gets everyone very upset. Very, very, very upset with everything that's happening here. No one wants to work with anybody that they're assigned to work with. No one wants to do the jobs. They're, all that stuff. And so they explode in a series of screams.
Yo, Joe!
This page is a lot of fun. I like this page a lot. I like the movement that Bright gets on this page without moving his camera. He flips it once, and it's in the final panel. But you get 3 horizontal panels, static camera work, medium shot from chest up, and it's the characters doing the movement. And it's Voltar and Cobra Commander screaming about having to work with each other and insulting each other. Then they get brushed aside by Baroness and Zartan, them screaming about each other. And then they, in turn, get brushed aside by Darklon and Mindbender, all to the camera being Destro. And then you get a flip, and when the camera flips, they then go, coloring-wise, they go into like a kind of a teal, actually, but a deep blue uniform color to indicate, to actually coloring-wise, to put the focus on Destro. And now we get to see the explanation of it. So takes what could be a boring page or a page of just, like static talking head inserts, right? You can imagine, I don't mean this to slag on Bendis comics, but you could imagine this being a Bendis comic and it being a lot of talking heads going back and forth and head, like this guy, that guy, this girl, that woman, that, blah, 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 like making their point. And it gives action, life, and acting to the physicality of all the characters in the room, in giving action without actually having any action. This is probably a note for some modern storytelling, because there's a lot of modern storytelling that has a lot of dialogue, that has a lot of expository stuff. So this is actually a pretty good page to use as an example of a fun way to do that and still give character stuff, because you even get Zartan and Baroness like huffing each other in that final pick, the third panel. There's a lot to like in this.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, in San Francisco, now the last time we were out here was that silent issue. So was that 3 issues ago, where Zartan was trying to assassinate Tommy because he believed Tommy was going to ambush him eventually, and get revenge for the Hardmaster. And with Jinx, they chased each other through the city. You guys remember that issue. And Zartan was quote presumed dead. He fell into the river. So we haven't really seen what's up with him. We're now at the Arashikage martial arts studio, and there's a real estate guy showing some dude who actually, at first, when I first saw this, my first thought was actually, oh, is that Snake Eyes, like following up on Storm Shadow, because he looks like he's kind of got that blonde look that Snake Eyes does when he wears his mask. But in the first panel, he actually speaks, so stops that theory. But we don't necessarily know who this person is. But the realtor is explaining that they used to run a dojo here, and the guy who ran it disappeared mysteriously, and so now I got to rent it all out. And while they're there, he's like, look, you even get the TV. I'll throw the TV in for free. And they turn it on, and it's Channel 6 news report. And they're, this is funny because this is the timing of coincidence that I actually love when this stuff happens in movies and TV, because it's just such a plot contrivance. And it's like, hey, we're all here to watch the story move, like what? Who cares? Like, you turn on the news, and of course it's that moment on the news when someone says, now for an update on the mysterious Russian sailor who was picked up by a tugboat in San Francisco Bay 5 months ago. So one, that tells us that silent issue was 5 months ago, like 5 months of G.I. Joe time ago. That's a huge, so Zartan's really been gone for 5 months, which is kooky. And we see the Soviets has insisted they have no missing seamen, and all efforts to ascertain his identity have failed. The guy, the seaman who was previously, like, he was being held because they didn't have any papers for him. He escaped authorities, and now he's disappeared. Well, who do you think that guy is?
Yo, Joe!
Now, the guy points out that there's bullet holes in the wall, and he's just, so he's getting it. Remember, Zartan, if I recall that issue properly, Zartan was never inside this. So inside the dojo, he was always outside. He was outside shooting from, like, all the ninjas attacked them inside. So this is actually his first time seeing all the action that went down in here. And so as this guy continues to show him this, we still get the still of the TV show. And on the TV, we see the guy's face, the Russian's face, and it's Zartan. The guy says something like, they were all the guys with funny code names and weird uniforms are all muttering something about sardines or Zardance or something like that. So then that tells us, because technically we don't know that this is Zartan. If this is your first read, you really don't know this is Zartan yet. But that's your first huge clue that it's Zartan. And on TV, the guy's face is there. So when the realtor sees the guy on TV, he's a little shocked, because that's the sailor that he's been talking to this whole time. And as he turns around, Zartan does his little magic bubble effect, and now he looks like, I don't know who he looks like. He's got a little Joe DiMaggio, I think, in him, like, for real. But he's brunette now. He was blonde. He's got a little Joe DiMaggio. I think he's got a little Joe DiMaggio in him. But he's like, what? I don't look anything like that guy, which is a fun gag.
Yo, Joe!
And confirms for longtime readers that's totally Zartan. If you're a new reader picking this up, you know that that's who he is, but you may not exactly know who Zartan is. Again, a lot of comics are people's very first. A lot of comics can be someone's very first comic. So some stuff you have to write with spoon feeding them. So now back to Broca Beach. Zarana and Baroness are taking a tour because Baroness is now going to be based out of Broca Beach. Of course, she felt betrayed by Destro for it. And we see that the Cobras are jailing their prisoners in the bowling alley. Because of the sound, like, with all the sound of a bowling alley, like, you could get away with a lot, and it's hard to bug. You can't really put listening devices in a bowling alley because you wouldn't hear anything, which is really smart, really great idea. They walk straight down a lane as some dudes are actually bowling, and the gate opens up and they slide right in, and it's a bunch of prisoners. So it's like salesmen from rival pyramid schemes, IRS investigators, the G.I. Joe guys are stored here. This is the political prisoners. Anybody who wanders into town and sees or hears too much. So this is not the official, police, because there is a Broca Beach police force. This is not their jail. This is the secret Cobra jail. This is their Guantanamo Bay.
Yo, Joe!
Now, Road Pig bangs on the gate for the Joe's prison door, and the door slides open, and they take their chance. Now, this is a great introduction because they don't actually introduce it. They just go for it. Like, we're told that they say special prisoners. Zartan says the rumors are true. Or Baroness says rumors are true. You really have 2 G.I. Joe team members prisoners. So we know there's 2 G.I. Joe members here. And then we get a door opening, and the first thing we see is a fist. This is all through the Cobra POV, right? So we're not with Clutch and Rock and Roll. They're not talking about, we're going to make our break for her. We got a plan to get out of here. This is straight up, door opens, Road Pig gets punched in the face. Road Pig's having a day. And then we get this insert shot of make a break for it. Clutch, I'm with you, Rock and Roll. So they name check each other. So now we know exactly who they are. We haven't seen their faces yet. We're still looking at their backs. And they throw a beat down on all these dreadnoughts. And it's all of them. It's Monkey Wrench, Buzzer, Ripper, Torch. I think is Thrasher with them? I think Thrasher's with them. Thrasher's with them. And they're beating on them until Road Pig settles it, as he normally does. Zartan and Baroness are just going at it with each other. They're not getting along. Calling each other Badger Barf, Liberal. I hear the Dreadnoughts follow you because that way they don't have to look at your face, which is great. And she says, I hear it took a plastic surgeon 10 hours just to get to a point, just to get your face to a point where it wouldn't nauseate buzzards, which is actually true. Remember, she had to have the plastic surgery after her face was all mangled. And then they literally started drawing her prettier after that. What was that, like issues like 17, 18, something like that? But the rebellion doesn't last long, and we see that Road Pig's run one-man dreadnought crew.
Yo, Joe!
So they're taking him to the movie theater, and the movie theater is where they keep the Brainwave Scanner. And they hook the guys up to Dr. Venom's old Brainwave Scanner, and they're gonna use it in reverse. Instead of extracting information, they're going to implant information of their choice. As Zartan says, unfortunately, the process is excruciatingly painful and potentially lethal to the recipients. It's a good thing we have 2 of them, eh, Baroness? The implication being in case one of them dies, the other one will still work. So we're going to find out, I think, next issue, what exactly information they're implanting into the guys. We don't know that yet. But it's the old school Brainwave Scanner that we've seen Snake Eyes hooked up to a million times.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, over at Fort Detrick, Maryland, Zanzibar is being held by the Joes. And he's being held by, it's the Dog Squad. It's Law and Order and Mutton Junkyard. By the way, the drawing of Order here looks like a dire wolf or something. That Order does not like Junkyard looks like Junkyard. Junkyard looks like an angry dog. Order looks like a straight Werewolf of London wolf. Like, and I know he's not a wolf. He's a dog. I get that. But the way Mark Bright draws him in this one panel, he's trying to draw him angry, and I get that. But holy cow. Order looks like an absolute creature of the night. So Zanzibar's waiting for his lawyers to show up. The Joes are, gonna throw the book at him, etc. Hawk reminds them they need to treat their prisoners well. And CoverGirl shows up with Zanzibar's lawyers. I like in the movies and in some of the recent iterations, I think they've done it in the comics too, like making like CoverGirl like Hawk's aide de camp. We're seeing that here. I don't think this is the first time we've kind of seen this. I mean, she's just around a lot. But if you were putting that in, looking at canon, this would be one of the early instances of like CoverGirl being like Hawk's right hand, Girl Friday kind of a person. Especially because CoverGirl hasn't been used in quite a while. So I don't know. I feel like we might have seen this somewhat recently too in one of the other issues, but my brain is farting on me, guys.
Yo, Joe!
And as usual, lawyers portrayed as not exactly the paragons of virtue. He's screaming about he says, you're looking at 10 to 20 years minimum. Hawk's like, well, I should be in a tad pessimistic about your client. He's like, I wasn't talking about my client. I was talking about you. He says, illegal search and seizure, violation of civil rights, Miranda, excessive force, blah, 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 blah. He's going to sue the Joes, etc. So, interesting. I don't know what happens to Zanzibar here. I'm assuming that this is how he gets out of custody, because we don't really revisit it this issue. Maybe we'll revisit it next issue. Like, how great would it be if this led to, it's been a while since I've actually reread these, so I don't exactly know what's happening in all these subplots. But like, what if there was just a straight up trial of Zanzibar, and it was just a dry courtroom drama about his crimes? But you get the impression from this one page, the way this page ends, and the way, like, Law says, someday you're going to slip up, Zanzibar, and I'm going to be there, that the lawyer walking in the room simply saying, you guys are terrible, allows Zanzibar to leave federal custody for being a terrorist. I think that's what's happening on this page, and if so, that's insane.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, back at the Presidio, this is out in San Francisco. Remember, the Joes have this kind of like secret Presidio base there. It's not a full Joe base, but it's their special, what Jinx operated out of, and Blind Master would hang out with her there. Although Blind Master's not a part of the thing, but General Hollingsworth walks up to literally walks up to the Presidio. He's in the car or anything, and so we know that that's not General Hollingsworth. That's really Zartan. And he asks to see Jinx, and he's actually, who's he talking? He's talking to Breaker. And we don't know it's Breaker. We find out on the next page it's Breaker. But he asks, let's try to say that. He asks to see Jinx on the double. And Breaker says, nobody here by that name, not now or not ever. And you should know better than to ask. And then Hollingsworth goes past him, and as he does, actually, Hollingsworth leaves, sorry. As he does, Breaker just hits the buzzer to alert the other Joes that there's trouble. Now this is one of those we just need to facilitate. We're not going to spend pages and pages of Zartan infiltrating all these places to track down Jinx and Storm Shadow. So we're just going to get right to the point. And I appreciate the economy of this page. You get a lot done here. You get the Joes on Zartan's heels. You find out what he's looking for, and then
Yo, Joe!
Outside, Breaker just hit the warning buzzer, and it's Roadblock, Dusty's there, Footloose, and Bazooka. And they're alerted from Breaker's alarm, and they're waiting to see General Hollingsworth because they assume that he's Zartan. And Breaker comes out and he's like, "Hey man, like, it's me, I'm Breaker." Like, and then they're not convinced that could be Zartan dressed as Breaker, etc. But we see quickly that now Zartan has changed his look, and he looks just like some other another military guy. And he says, "I better get moving, bro. Some sort of trouble back at the Defense Language Center." So that's Zartan making his way off the base. So it's a quick 2-page aside just to get Zartan in the sights of
Yo, Joe!
the Blind Master. He says, "They thought they could trap me. They have no idea who they're." It's not that they were trapping you, Zartan. You just walked into their. No. So you know what this does? This panel. This panel actually shows me Zartan's paranoia, because that's not what was happening, and I don't think that's a writing. I think that this really is showing his paranoia. But sometimes just because you're paranoid don't mean you're not wrong, because there's the Hard Master. And he says, "You can't fool us vision impaired folks with that hologram jive. Besides, I remember the way you smell." And he remembers him because he knew him way back in the days at the Arashikage Ninja Dojo. He says, "Blind Master, well, I sure ain't Ray Charles," which is funny. So Zartan now reveals himself. So we see Zartan in his full Zartan look. And I get the feeling, and I can't wait to read the next issue, I get the feeling they're going to go into an alley. He says, "We got this nice alley to our lonesome." This is Blind Master. "We got our nice alley to our lonesome. What say we walk down to the other end where prying eyes can intrude and get down to it?" So I'm hoping for a They Live level alley fight next issue. God, I hope that happens.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, back at Broca Beach, this is the page with that really good, that Mark Bright Destro, that look that just doesn't seem the same look as the Destro on the earlier pages. That made me think it was redrawn. But here we get Destro explaining to Mindbender that, he's talking about the bats, the Battle Android Troopers. And he's basically telling Mindbender, a lot of your components, you may not know this, but they were created by Mars Industries. And you think that they weren't, but they really were. And so I have the ability to kind of subvert you. And what he's really doing is he's showing his dominance over Mindbender to think, things you think you do and think you know about, I'm one step ahead of you. And not only do I have a direct line into your Battle Android Troopers, but I also got a nice little surprise for you. This is a fun page. It's a really good page. It's an important page as far as Destro establishing his dominance. And before we go to the next page, I just want to point out that now you can be Indiana Jones. You can play the Indiana Jones interactive telephone adventure games. Did anyone here ever call 1-900-990-8683? I'm not saying call it today because I doubt it's Indiana Jones, but it was an Indiana Jones adventure line. Did anyone ever call this line? Anyone?
Yo, Joe!
We get one of those Cobra helicopters landing, and there's a bunch of Battle Android Troopers piloting it that are under Destro's command. And as they're landing here, Destro walks him on board, or walks Mindbender on board, because he's got some cargo, and I like the way he says, "You know what the cargo is," and Mindbender's like, "I can guess," which is again more dominance by Destro.
Yo, Joe!
He says, "A little item you had the bats stash away in the bilge of the landlocked freighter right after the Cobra Civil War." Mindbender's reaction to that is the word, I'm going to pronounce it NARF, but it's GNARF, like NARF. Like, he's like, uh-oh, I got busted. Packed in ice like a load of frozen cutlets. It's Serpentor, everybody. Serpentor's dead body. I do like that he's just raw in ice cubes. He's not like in plastic in ice cubes. He's just straight up on ice cubes. And Destro points out that if Cobra Commander knew he had kept the body, he'd be in a lot of trouble with Cobra Commander because he had told him that he was going to be an organ donor, etc. So once again, Destro is exerting his dominance here.
Yo, Joe!
Now, we jump over to the High Sierras, which we haven't really visited, and we didn't really know anyone was out here. But it's Jinx and Scarlet and Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes and Timber. And they're all hanging out by a fire. And this is catching up with those guys after the ambush at the Presidio. Here's a detail I really enjoy, especially because Mark Bright wasn't drawing this back then. We still have the remnants of Snake Eyes' destroyed cabin. What was that, from issue 33 or something, like mid 30s? So they haven't rebuilt the cabin yet. All the ninjas and wannabe ninjas and wolves, they're all hanging out by a fire. And they say, Tommy says, it's just a matter of time before Zartan tracks him down. But Timber picks up on some noise in the woods. So we're going to find out what's in the woods.
Yo, Joe!
An arrow comes flying at them. Snake Eyes gets Jinx and Scarlet to duck and cover. They proceed to kill the fire. And, as they douse the fire, then there goes all their visibility because it's late at night. So now they can't really see in the shadows. But that means whoever's out there can't see them either. Can't shoot arrows at them. So Storm Shadow's a hidden guy. Meanwhile, as we're recording this, a helicopter just started flying overhead. I'm going to try to finish this up real quick before they come back. I got one more page left. Leave me alone, helicopter.
Yo, Joe!
And Timber comes back, and Timber's actually been wounded. Timber's been shot with an arrow, but in his mouth is a piece of red cloth from like a red ninja cloth. And here we got Storm Shadow in his V2 look. And he says, it's torn from the robe of a red ninja. And Storm Shadow's been preparing to meet him. He awaits me in a high place where water runs. And so he's going to go off and meet this ninja on his own. So next issue, guys, G.I. Joe 91 is we're getting some more awesome ninja action, which I can't wait for. Postbox, The Pit. Got a few letters here. Nothing crazy. We got a letter from David DeLeon from Orange, California. Toby Creedler from Huntington, Pennsylvania. Chris Connolly, address withheld by request. Chris Connolly in the Witness Protection Program. John Schwartz from Hudson, Iowa. And Brandon Weinborger from High Point, North Carolina. If you guys are out there listening, reach out, let me know. It wouldn't be the first one we've touched base with. And so that's it, guys. That's it for G.I. Joe number 90. So like I said, it's a very blocking and tackling issue. It moves a lot of stories forward and gets us set up for some really cool ninja action. I'm hoping next issue. My hopes for it are we get a nice Zartan Blind Master fight in the alley, and then we get ninja action in the woods, and then we get, as like the C plot, I want to follow up on what's up with Clutch and Rock and Roll as far as what's being implanted into their heads. That's what I hope happens next issue, and I hope you guys are here to listen to me too. So, until next time, now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.